The crypto market has been super choppy after a big pullback 2 weeks ago. Many fear that there is no bull run this year, or that the bull run is over for the whole 4-year cycle. Now, is that true? Well, we have Paul with us from DEVVE today, so let's take a look at the crypto market and let's see what we can see in the price action today. Maybe it'll give us some clues. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. If you, like me, came into crypto because you realize there is massive potential here for life-changing gains, but over a greater 4 to 8 year period, and you're looking for discussion on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, you're in exactly the right place. I was once new to the crypto space myself 8 years ago, and I didn't know at that time that if you're trying to be a YouTuber, to grow a huge YouTube channel, you do it by talking about things that were already high and being optimistic for why they'd go higher and higher. And I didn't realize that for the first year that incentives were all wrong on YouTube for crypto content creators. Now, I was hungry for analysis on cryptos that were underpriced, that were undervalued, and I didn't find that. So in 2020, I created that. And we discussed crypto as an investment, discussed the most important things like investment cycles, projects, the pros and cons of those projects, the risks, the guess the upside if it came together well. We cover undervalued projects that nobody else is talking about because they're not yet hot. In other words, they're still really inexpensive. Well, it's not just me. It's a whole family of rainmakers. Together, we've created that. Now, when I started this channel, I did share that problem with the YouTube algorithm with the audience, and I asked if you would join me to help me get big enough that we could have on guests from the top crypto projects that we felt were undervalued, and we accomplished that. Now, many of you are here after dollar cost averaging through the bear market and watching and waiting for this 2025 bull market, and it is going to be huge. If you're looking for deeper discussions, join our private Patreon group that allows you access to our Rainmaker private Discord. This is where the best discussions and the best info is. And there are other benefits too, but you will have to join us to find out. Do know, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul invests in many different markets. None of this is to be taken as financial advice. If you haven't already, make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show and help me welcome Paul to the channel. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be here as always. And yeah, sorry that we didn't get a chance to meet up yesterday. Obviously, it was just a diary thing, but we're here now, and look, things are looking really interesting. So it's a great time to be talking about the markets.
Yes, it is. Like, what's crazy to me is how easily new people get shaken when it's not happening yet. And I guess I was once new and I can understand that. But when I was new back in 2017, at least I had been investing for 20 years. So I had some grasp that markets sometimes go faster than you want, sometimes go slower than you want. Most of the time they go slower than you want. And that not to let like the little ups and downs shake me out from my long-term perspective.
Yeah, I think look, it's always difficult investing at any time and in any market. You know, none of this is ever easy, and if it ever feels easy, then you should really take a long, hard look at what's going on, because it's certainly not designed to be easy. It's designed to shake you out. The market is designed to look best when it's the worst and the worst when it's the best. It's a very contrary setup. So I'm not surprised that especially in the crypto space, which is extremely volatile, that when people take positions, they get shaken out of them, you know, because there would have been a lot of late coming positions when Donald Trump won the election, and they thought, right, this is good for crypto, so they buy in, and then they get squeezed out. But if you're only deciding at that point that crypto was an investment, then you have to think about, well, was it good timing? And it probably, I mean, it could have been. That's the thing. The probabilities were, it obviously could have continued up and moved into all-time highs, which is what we're expecting for the future, or it could have been a short-term top. But as we keep saying, the market can't go up in a straight line, and it will need to correct, and it has corrected. And our view has been that the correction would be one that would reverse, and then the market would go up again, rather than that we're at the end of the market, because we're looking for different things to indicate that we're at the final stages of the bull run. And this is why we look at all these other factors when taking into account the kind of macro position of where we are in crypto. We've still got equity markets going up. We've still got interest rates possibly going down. We've got the dollar that's falling really aggressively. Rates are staying low. Now, we might see a bit of an equity shakeout here, because it feels to me like there's some bad news in the system. Bad news is good news, because bad news means that rates go down. So the markets are kind of reacting or getting used to that. But all the risk-on type trades, precious metals, base metals, they're all moving higher, and that's showing that there's a stronger economy. China, again, that's moving up. The Hong Kong stock market is moving higher, and so there's going to be a lot of liquidity in the system coming up in the next few months. So I don't think we've seen the top. I think there's more to come. Altcoins have taken a battering in this correction, and it's almost like the announcement that Trump has made about this fund, this crypto fund, has done absolutely nothing. So everybody thinks, well, this is a a damp squib, and it's not going to do anything for the crypto market. But it's like one of those things that a little bit later they suddenly change their mind and everything will be off to the races again. And I think that's exactly what will happen here. So we might get a bit of a consolidation, a pause. We want to see that. We don't want this market to be too in focus, too in the main headlines. If that happens, then we get the sorts of things that we've just seen, i.e. the market runs up too fast, too much speculative short-term money comes in, they get shaken out, causes a whole lot of volatility, and then people start questioning whether the bull market's still in effect, which it is. It's just that these, even for, it doesn't matter what your background is, these are massive moves, and if they're leveraged, they're even more so. So it's not surprising that people will get shaken out and will find it hard to stay in.
Yeah, it's times like this where you see really why I say don't play with leverage. Leverage will wipe you out, and people that were going short recently got wiped. People that were going long got wiped, and all the leverage is getting absolutely annihilated. Crypto is volatile enough when at least when you own individual cryptos rather than when you're leveraged. You can just sit back and watch and just wait. And that puts you in a powerful position, because a lot of this turbulence, in my opinion, is short term. That we still haven't seen the blow off top from the 2025 run. That's still to come. And when it does, you just don't want to get wiped out using leverage in the meantime. And it puts you in a patient position where you can wait patiently, which isn't, what was it Warren Buffett that said that, investments are the vehicle from redirecting money from the impatient to the patient.
That's a good expression. I've not heard that one. I've heard quite a few of Buffett's ones. I haven't heard of that one. That's good.
Isn't that how it plays out? Wealth transfer from the impatient to the patient. And so in crypto, you have to be able to be patient. If you look around and you see all the market being impatient, you're in the right place. Why do you think there's so much money to be made here? Because there's so many impatient that come in. In fact, in crypto, most of the people coming in have no investment background. They don't really know what they're doing yet. I try to get a hold of them and share with them how to have some long-term thinking and how to counter trade the general market by buying generally when the crypto market is way down and then selling when the crypto market is going crazy. And it's gone a little bit crazy. Like we saw like Bitcoin go from as low as 14,000 to 105,000 and higher. But really the blow off top, this cycle hasn't happened yet. That's still coming. And a lot of these altcoins are going to go crazy. But that comes later. And in the meantime, a lot of people playing with leverage or a lot of people being impatient are getting shaken out. And that's not a bad thing. That's why there's so much money to be made. That's why some of the altcoins are back to lows from the bear market, which is crazy that they're so underpriced. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah, all the things that are happening are moving towards supporting the next run. So, if you look back at what we were talking about a year or so ago, possibly even more, we were saying that the environment will move towards a crypto friendly environment. This is what we're expecting. I said the American economy and the American people in finance, they're too smart to let this opportunity go past them. I wanted the then Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister of the UK, talked a good game about crypto in the UK, and it was quite surprising. Okay, he's ex Goldman Sachs and a multimillionaire, but he was saying things that were positive towards the crypto space, saying we want to be the center. And that was during the Biden administration when they really didn't have any interest. But it's quite obvious that if the Americans decide to do it, there's no chance that we're going to have well, we might get a bit of a look in, but you're just going to be ahead of the game. So the fact that everything is moving towards a more positive scenario towards crypto generally in the US is part of the next leg up in this bull market. And so sentiment is negative because of corrections. Sentiment is negative because of short-term leverage. If I was asked where altcoins would be at this stage, I would have thought they would be higher, but the market doesn't always do what you expect. This is why you also have to monitor it, but think of the big picture. Are these corrections saying that that's it and it's all over? No, I don't think so. I think we're going to start a new recovery phase, and actually Bitcoin may underperform a little bit. I'm not sure. That would be a really interesting scenario where altcoins take over. But some of the corrections have been pretty sharp, fast, and that's the sort of thing that clears the system out, especially in Bitcoin. And there are other things that are starting to look like they're trying to base out. Some of the really bombed out coins that people are just going to turn their back on and sell or just forget about. It wouldn't surprise me if those in a few months' time were trading much higher.
Yes, that's what I'm patiently waiting for. We're going to look today. We'll look at some charts. We'll look at Cardano, HBAR, XRP, Chainlink, all of which are up from the past week and showing some signs of life. They're all high potential ones to be included in. Recently, Donald Trump was talking about the cryptocurrency strategic reserve, and that it might include all coins, and those are all highly likely to be included in that. Now, what's funny to me is how much sentiment plays a factor in prices running. And like I remember during the bear market of 2018 through 2020, 2020, really things had already bottomed out in part like early 2020, and they started running up. And there was some shakiness like this, and they weren't to the bottom. Things had run up some. And you had billionaires buying crypto for the first time and some sovereign wealth funds buying crypto for the first time. And yet, like, prices kept pummeling down like this, and people were worried. And I was like, well, I guess you could be concerned, but there's underneath, the fundamentals are stronger than it ever has been. We have these massively huge names like Elon Musk buying Bitcoin. Is going to catch on at some time. It's going to catch some traction. So we're in the next phase of that cycle, and that not just billionaires, but now governments are looking at buying crypto. And in this foundation, it's not a question of if the US is going to buy crypto. The question is how much. And then once they do, other countries are going to buy it. So we still have this run ahead of us. And I specifically play the high-risk altcoins. Now, the high-risk altcoins, for the most part, haven't run yet. And that's okay, because when they run, they're like a massive sprinter that can cover incredible distance. And that's why I prefer to be there rather than the long-term ones like Bitcoin. Bitcoin will go up maybe 70% from here. If we have a super cycle, maybe able to go up 4 or 5 or 6x from here. Some of the high-risk altcoins will do 50 times what they're at now, 100 times what they're at now. Some of the lucky ones will do 2 or 3 or 400 times where they're at now, or 3 or 400x is what we say in the crypto space. So I'm excited looking for how that's going to play out. Paul, why don't you show us what's going on in some of the markets that you're following?
Sure.
Generally, like, these potential trade wars have people a little bit freaked out as Donald Trump is trying to renegotiate what tariffs are in the US and what tariffs are going to be for other countries, and it's shaken up pretty much all the markets. What do you see?
Yeah, it's a non-story. The tariffs are just a weapon that he's using to for kind of a political gain. The markets aren't really that bothered, and I can show you that in the chart of the US dollar index, which is collapsing as we speak. So it's another one of those things that was supposed to derail the bull market. We've had so many along the way. I've kind of forgotten what they were from last year. It was like war in the Middle East. It was, Russia-Ukraine war. It was Silicon Valley Bank going down. All the things that have come along. This is just another one that's it's a diversion, and shouldn't be really paying that much attention to it. It will sort itself out. The market has had time to digest this so-called bearish information, and the dollar would be going up a lot more if they were taking it more seriously. So as far as the equity markets go, the bull market is still on. Now, that doesn't mean that it won't go down. It just means that the trend is still up. We are seeing some signs in the Dow of possibly a double top, which would trigger if we break this 41,000 level. And it's had a bit of a correction. It's heading perhaps towards that point. There's lots of support around there. But coming back to the trend line is well within the parameters of an upward trend. So I would like to see it just stay in this range and then break higher. I think we talked about potentially doing that in the last few weeks, because whilst we're in this intermediate position, it's not clear whether it is going to consolidate and make a new high or whether this is going to be a top. So some parts of technical analysis are if then. But what we can say is that the sentiment is still very negative, which implies that the trend is still going to be up in the long term. Doesn't mean you get it your way every single day, every single week. The market will correct. It's got to pause. It's got to have a rest, and then market goes sideways. They start shorting it, and then we get another squeeze to the upside. So the overall trend is still bullish. We've got this 45,000 resistance point, which has become even more significant because it's been touched twice. So when it goes through that, that will be a green light to a very strong move. So equities are going higher, S&P's correcting short term, but still part of a bullish trend. And again, pointing to sentiment, it implies it's got further to go. VIX index looks like it might try and break higher, which is why I'm on alert for a bit of an equity correction. And I think the equity correction is going to be, well, we've got non-farms on Friday. There's either some bad news in the system. So it's either going to be a CPI number, which I think is coming out possibly on the 10th of March, or maybe a bit like, I can't remember when CPI is coming out, but CPI, I think it's next week. And that's either going to be really weak and the market will get rattled, or we're going to have a bad payrolls number, which is going to pull the market down, but then rates are going to be cut, or the market will move towards rate cuts, and that's what's going to drive it back up again. So it's this bad news is good news scenario that's driving everything, and that all of that is good because it means there's more liquidity in the system, and that will flow into Bitcoin and altcoins, and find its way into creating a bull market there, even if it's a short-term correction in the equity markets. So what else are we looking at? I mentioned the chart of the dollar index. Well, what a correction this has had. It's right on the lows. It's currently trading all the way down at 103 and some change, 103.94. But look at how hard that's dropped from 107. These are big moves. And it's implying that everyone's got long around here thinking about these tariffs and how the dollar should strengthen and all of that sort of stuff. And the market's just saying no. So this is the next big touch paper to light for the next phase of the bull market. Now, I know it's still got a bit of a way to go before it breaks this 100 level that we've talked about for such a long time. But we've consistently said that this would form some form of top. And when it does break, we'll be in the next phase of this bull market for equities. Dollar going down is whether it's because there's no gold in Fort Knox and they've got to start buying it all up, or whatever it might be. You know, whatever's causing it in some ways is irrelevant. The dollar going down will make altcoins, Bitcoin, equity markets go up, and it's going to be a global. Let's talk about the punch bowl being at a party, and it will be somebody spiking the punch bowl with some vodka or what have you. But that sort of analogy of someone, you know, bringing some liquor to a party is kind of how I see it. It's already going in that direction, and this is just going to magnify it. So the dollar going down is very important. Looking at 3-month, let me just take that off there on the log scale. 3-month interest rates are still pressing this lower level, certainly not going up. So people are talking about inflation, signs of interest rates going up. I'm not seeing any of it. And we've got the 10-year money that's still trading below 4.5%. That's over 10 years. Think about that. You know, if the rate is 4.25% at the moment, 10-year money holding it there, and you're only getting 4.3%. I mean, it's like, where is the inflation? That might be a story for later on, but it's not for now. So, and one of the other important things that we're seeing with regard to the inflationary story that will probably take a few months to come into the picture, but will be increasingly important will be the oil price. So crude oil, we've been waiting for a break of this $68 or $70 level. And this is another really positive factor. Who doesn't need to travel? You know, we all need to travel. Everything we consume needs to travel. If oil prices are going down, that's a massive boost to everybody. It's almost like an interest rate cut in itself. So you've almost got two major macro factors that are coming together to push the market higher at a time when you've got the leader of the free world who's very market and crypto focused, you know, intent on creating the environment for that to flourish. So, you know, that's kind of why I'm so bullish. It's more from the technicals, but you can also see where the fundamentals are kind of pointing to the same thing. So that's all looking very interesting. And you know, actually I'm going to show you the Hong Kong stock market just because I think this is a fascinating chart. It's currently trading at, what's that high there? Feb 22. This is trading towards some really major levels. But again, this is something that nobody was expecting. They were thinking that the Chinese and the Hong Kong stock markets were in deflation, and right at these lows here, they were expecting the markets to go lower, and we got this big spike up here, and I'm sure that this got shorted into. But if it starts to come back, those shorts will have to cover, because they look at the economy as it was. They're looking at the economy backwards and saying, well, that's how it was. Well, you know, the market changes, and the market's forward looking. The market's not backward looking. So it's looking at what's going to happen towards the end of this year and into the following year, not what's happened last year. So, you know, if a business is, think of it this way, if a business has been losing money, it's not been doing very well, and you're looking at its past accounts and you're saying, yeah, you know, things are really terrible and it's been on the downward spiral, and then they completely change. If say it's a restaurant, they completely change their menu, they change the chef, and everything's changed going forward, then why wouldn't you change your view on that, on the outlook for that particular restaurant and that company? You know, so once you see that happening, even though the past accounts are looking bad, the market's anticipating, look, they've made some brilliant changes here, and the future, if we're right about it, is that the prospects are really good. So you're getting a chance to buy something at very cheap levels when everybody else is looking at the past history and saying, look how bad things are. And that buying and that optimism comes in the chart where you see these changes in trend, as the saturation of the selling reaches a point where there's enough buyers to say, look, you know, this has gone far enough. So that's what I think is quite interesting. I mean, gold hasn't quite broken the 3,000 level, but if we look at silver's moving up aggressively, but copper, oh my goodness me, if there was ever a bullish chart, this is a bullish chart. Copper looks like it's going to explode. That is not a bearish scenario at all. So the macro themes are still looking really positive, even if the equity markets have an interim correction.
Funny how recency bias like impacts investors that aren't paying really close attention. So what feels like was doing well, it takes research to kind of see when things are changing. And like just playing off the general sentiment right now, the crypto market feels down. The higher risk altcoins feel like a terrible place to be.
Yeah.
Like, why not just sell the high risk altcoins, roll into Bitcoin, because at least Bitcoin performs well. What that statement is saying, well, at least Bitcoin has performed well over the last year. And so, in other words, buy something that's already been performing really well. And that's a mistake tons of people make in crypto. And remember, when you're in the crypto space, 89% of people do mediocre to poorly in the crypto space. So if you're doing the same things as those 89%, then you're actually going to do mediocre to poorly. And that's the 89% that are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to sell my high risk altcoins. They haven't done anything yet. And I'm going to roll it into Bitcoin because Bitcoin's performing well. And you know what? In other words, they're selling something that might be 80% down and they're rolling into Bitcoin, which might only have a 70% increase from here. And they'll end up down for the 4-year cycle. What a mistake. Whereas those high risk altcoins, if they survive, certain ones will do 50x, 100x, more than making up for what they're down by a long ways and put them far into profit. But these are the decisions that a lot of people make that are new to this and they don't know what they're doing. They're just reacting. And this is a common reaction. So let's take a look and let's see. Well, so there's the Bitcoin chart. What do you think about Bitcoin and ETH and where they're both at?
Yeah. So if we look at the daily chart on Bitcoin, you see how it spiked off and now it's just rebounded. It's recovered in such a strong way. I mean, we were saying maybe it would get to this area here and then move up. I didn't think it would do it in a week, but it's great that it's shown that there are buyers coming in, and this is clearly just there was some technical selling on the break of 89. That was a big double top pattern. That's exactly what I'd expect. But I was also expecting a bull market that this would be hoovered up very quickly. So it probably does still need a bit more of a consolidation. But overall, the trend's still up. This is not a bear market yet. And sentiment is so negative right now that it would suggest that if sentiment is really negative, it'd be very unlikely that the market would then go into a bearish trend. It's just not very common for the market to do that. It's not impossible. I mean, of course, there is a caveat here that it may do, but it's just very unlikely. So I think that the most likely outcome here is that it will trade sideways for a bit, and then people will calm down, stop talking about it, and then it will come off the headlines and they'll move on to other things. There'll be things to distract the main media with, and then it'll start to break up and then move higher. And remember, a lot of the all-time high breaks that we got around here wasn't really in the media. People weren't talking about it that much. So yeah, so the chart's still looking bullish, and after a consolidation, I do expect it to go back up over 100,000 and potentially break this high and move high, 120 karaoke level and maybe a bit higher than that. But I'd be happy if this consolidates now. I'm not sort of in love with the idea that it definitely has to go up. But I think the next phase is just going to be all out speculation, and that might imply an underperformance in Bitcoin and an outperformance in some of the altcoins. As far as ETH has gone, yeah, I mean the chart hasn't looked as bullish as Bitcoin, because it hasn't broken into its all-time high, and we're still waiting for this level, which is quite far away now at 4,055. But it's done a similar thing in trying to break its key support point, and it's rejecting it as we speak. Now, it's not quite enough for me to get excited right now. I mean, look, if you, I'm not saying if you, I could justify buying it here because this was a key breakout point all the way back here. So when we're talking about this base forming, this was part of the strategy, that there was a base forming here and that would start to trend up. Now it's a little more muted than Bitcoin, but that doesn't mean that this isn't a really interesting area. So I want to see it bounce off here. I'd have to use a secondary indicator or something like a trend line to indicate that this is this correction is over and we're now moving back up, and we're going to start challenging this big level here. But it should be part of the overall bullish strategy that it does that. I mean, remember, we've seen this in things like, we've seen this in other markets. We've seen this in, copper was sold off very aggressively not long ago, and look at it now, it's soaring. The markets can turn around extremely quickly. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is either at a low or very close to a low. And the fact that we've had some good news and the market is sort of ignoring it, I think is very interesting. It's almost like they just, they've so given up with this ever going up that they don't even at this stage want to hear some good news. And I think that a bit later on it will all turn around. It could turn around quite quickly. But yeah, it does need a little bit more time to be fair. I would like to see it close over this downward trend line just to confirm this corrective point is over. But as I say, it wouldn't surprise me. There's so much support around this area here where it is right now that it would be a great place for it to bottom out.
Yeah, the price on ETH is starting to look really attractive. I also like where sentiment is at on ETH, which is really, really low. And that's usually when the green flags are going off. Like, I remember over the past 30 days, people saying ETH is pretty much dead. Solana and everything else is replaced. Of course, this was a month ago when Solana's price was way, way high. And they're saying Solana is the place to go. ETH is dead. I love hearing that stuff. Like, do not ever fall for that trap. Because what's happened since then is Solana has gotten way cheap compared to that. That is what over bullishness looks like exactly. And ETH is a deal. Now, I don't hold a lot of ETH because it's such a high market cap coin. Like what it can do from here, maybe 3x, maybe 2x, maybe 5x, maybe 10x. I mean, much, much riskier things. But ETH is a great buy right now. Like, it's absolutely great buy. I like it when the chart looks like this, and it looks scary, and I buy when it looks scary. And I say a lot of times I buy when everything like the news seems boring, and the news seems boring for ETH. So yeah, good place for it to be. Let's take a look at Cardano, which has had some action. Cardano, possibly Trump hinting at Cardano maybe being included in the U.S. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, and its price has definitely reacted.
Well, I think the question we have to ask ourselves is, what does Elon Musk think should be in the Bitcoin Reserve, right? Because he's the tech guy, isn't he? And so he's got his ear. So I said before, it's like whatever he thinks as good, robust technology, people who are watching the show, you may have a really good idea of what you think is good technology and what you would suggest if you were in his shoes. But from the charts, it certainly looks like Cardano is going to break higher. I mean, the chart is looking good. It's based out. And we've got a lot of resistance up at this 120 level. And it just feels like there's just upward pressure. So, it would not surprise me if it is part of it. But overall, the chart is looking, more bullish than some of the others. I liked, for example, this particular chart at one point, and it's really underperformed. So what I'm saying here is that, what would look really good around this area, and then it underperformed, is you have to just readjust to what the realities of the chart are. It's like a good probability when it was outperforming, but then it just showed it was underperforming. But if we go back to Cardano, that really underperformed for a long time, but it's managed to hold on to its gains. It had a really nice move in November last year, and although it has been volatile, it's still sticking with this upward trend, which is great. So 120, there's a whole load of resistance there, which is why it's battling with it at the moment. But a 1 week close over that, and I think we're going to be opening up, this sort of area here. But it'd be very unusual if other things didn't move with it. That's all I would say. It might move first, a bit like the AI coins and the AI stocks. Everything goes, and they go, and then everything sort of slowly follows suit, and then you get this transition of everyone thinking, well, what's cheap, and then they start to buy the things that haven't moved yet.
Yes, and that cascade effect
Yeah.
It's huge. And because some of these lower market cap coins have such low liquidity and their market caps are so low, their market caps can move tremendously with just a little bit of buying, which is why I prefer to be in there. Now, Cardano made me a ton of money in buying it in the bear market. And at the time, last bear market, its market cap went to about 300 million. And now it's at 31.6 billion. So even at today's price, but the market went all the way down on Cardano to 1.7 cents during the bear market. And now it's a much higher market cap coin. Now there's plenty of gains to be made on Cardano. I think Cardano will exceed its previous highs of $3.40. It's currently trading around 90 cents. When it was an incredible deal, it was like at 21 cents here. It says 24, but it hit 21. And I was like, oh my gosh, Cardano is just way too cheap. It should never be this cheap. It's an amazing deal. And since then, it went up, bounced down, and you just see this slow rise here. Now, Cardano survived some interesting points. I was getting a little bit concerned here that it was not getting enough. Oh, let me share this. It was not getting enough traction. So here's where it was cheap at 21 cents, even though it says 24. Went up, came back down, and has generally got this rising trend. Now, one of the concerns I had with Cardano is not enough new development building on it, but that has changed. And I think they've cemented themselves into the future because they did take the time, in my opinion, to build one of the best blockchains out there. And they took a lot of time to architect it, to build it right. They've had much, much fewer problems than Solana, than even ETH. And they're set up in a very smart way. I think now with the traction that they're getting, Cardano is around for forever. So if I were holding blue chips, this might be one that would be interesting to me, even though these prices aren't as cheap as they once were. It's now about 90 cents. Where could this go? I think maybe 5 or 10x from here, maybe more. We'll see. But this is why I'm not in blue chips, because I'm hoping to get much higher gains from here than, say, even 10x. And so if I were already a billionaire and I was looking for something to park $30 million in, Cardano would be a great solution, because if it only did 5x from here, that's amazing. But when you're trying to go to much higher prices, that's not the place to be. Did want to get to some of the comments. Justin says, we got us a crypto reserve before GTA 6 came out. They've been teasing Grand Theft Auto 6 for forever. And who would have guessed, like 2 years ago when they did this big trailer about Grand Theft Auto 6, that a Bitcoin strategic reserve from the US would probably come into effect long before GTA 6 came out. Got some other things starred. This made me laugh.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
So what Paul is saying on copper is to take a 50x leverage long.
No. What I'm saying is take 100x. That's what you should do. No, I'm not saying that, by the way. Just yeah. For the avoidance of doubt, I'm not saying that.
All right. Let's take a look then. So Cardano for a blue chip. Would I give it a buy? I would say for blue chip, yes. Am I actually buying it? No. I'm not buying any blue chips. In fact, I diversified out of much of my Cardano to lower cap coins. I still hold some Cardano. It's not a lot compared to what I used to hold at all, but it is one of the only blue chips I do hold any of. All right, let's take a look at HBAR, which has had some movement, possibly going to be included in the strategic reserve.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that we're seeing this, some of these ones that are going to be in the strategic pool that have actually held on to their gains, and the charts look slightly different, like XRP that we're going to get to, but HBAR came back to a fantastic support. Look at this support. That was prior resistance. It's almost textbook the way it touched it and rebounded. This is exactly what you would expect. Now, I'm pretty sure I got excited about it breaking higher from here because, I'm at heart a trend follower and I like the market breaking into new highs. especially when it's had a decent run. I mean, I may have mentioned that it needs a correction, because obviously in a move like this, it would be unusual, and we do need it to correct a little bit. Otherwise, it becomes too overbought. And again, that is a story for further down the road, when people will just stop listening and just buying, because they're FOMOing into, as to use the expression, the market. All the people who are on the sidelines will no longer have any reservation. They're just going to be jumping in, and in the short term making massive gains, but in the long term it's whether they'll hold on to them. We'll get that sort of price action later on in the phase, but for the moment, we're not there yet. So it has to be more in line with what we call a normal market, which it can break up aggressively, but we need to see more corrections. So yeah, this is looking bullish. I mean, it's not really changed since it had its breakout here. Its consolidation, it taking out its prior resistance at 17 cents. I would expect, I would like to see it actually go sideways and pivot around 28 cents for a bit, and that would build up a really nice consolidation pattern before it then breaks higher. But however it does it, I would say for me it's still a buy at this point. The only disappointment might come if it breaks the 17 cents level, because it is such a key support point, prior resistance, that I would imagine there would be a quite sharp short-term sell-off, where it might get back to this support level here at 12 cents. I don't think that will happen, but if it should happen, I've got to think 2 steps ahead. Then there will be some corrective selling going on. But overall, the structure of this is it's had a really sharp move. It's on the whole holding on to its gains, and it's trading nicely technically. So I think within the bull market it should do well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it break 50 cents this year.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if it doesn't break 50 cents this year. I think still the bull run is going to happen in 2025. There is a chance, and that chance continues to grow bigger. That doesn't happen until 2026, but still, like, if you look in the past, when the bull market finally does go crazy, it happens over a very short period of time. For example, Kyle asked, do you think tariffs led up and that will spark the bull market?
No, the bull market is going to happen anyway. It's the market will drive it. And so, I wouldn't worry about what actually drives it. It's just, it will happen. And it's like one of these stories that hits the headlines and everybody's talking about it, and then it suddenly fades away. We've seen it happen so many times. Even talked about it on the show, where I can't even think of how many times. What were all the things that were supposed to make the market go down? There was the terrorist attacks. There was, as I said, the Middle East, and the war in Ukraine and all that stuff. They seem like really big stories, and yet
nobody's even thinking about them anymore.
Well, they just faded. Yeah, you don't. The market doesn't talk about them, and they just sort of fall off the headlines, and then the market quietly goes up, and that's what I'd expect to happen. I can't see that there's anything more that the market needs to do in order to get ready. I mean, he's using this as a political weapon. We're going to put tariffs on, and unless you comply with X, Y, or Z, and as long as they comply, I think it will just be a non-issue. And the market, look, if it was a real problem, the dollar would be much higher, the stock market would be much lower. And the way it's responded, I guess that's why I'm kind of ignoring it. I haven't even looked deeply into the details, because it's just like, no, the currency markets aren't showing signs that this is a problem. The equity markets aren't showing signs that this is a problem. If it becomes a problem for the equity market, they'll just drop interest rates, and that will support the risk on story. So I just don't think it's doing enough to upend this bull market at all. And so what I think will happen, and you can try and bookmark this for later, is what I think will happen is it will just fall off the headlines. We'll move on to something else. People start talking about growth and good numbers and all that sort of stuff. Interest rates will be cut, and the equity markets will be flying high with everything else, and people just won't mention tariffs.
Yeah, well, beyond the other stories, I think about what's going on in the U.S. economy, like kind of like what happened when Elon Musk took over Twitter. When he took over Twitter, he had to come in there and he had to revamp things and reorganize the structure and figure out who was useful and who wasn't. And same thing is happening with the U.S. government right now. And you haven't seen I can't say that. You saw some politicians do something like that in El Salvador. And El Salvador, I remember 25 years ago, I was working with a bunch of Central and South American people, and El Salvador was the second scariest place to be in the world. And today it's one of the safest. And you've seen El Salvador completely transform into a vibrant, growing place. And the US is having some really interesting things done, not only the government, but Trump is renegotiating, like Paul said. And he's using the threat of tariffs as like a big threat or weapon to renegotiate the deals. And my guess is a lot of these countries just go ahead and negotiate to his new terms. And then the tariffs are really a non-issue. So we'll see how this shakes out. There's some big, I guess, redoing of the structure of things in the US. And then I think we'll see what kind of impacts that has. But crypto is going to run, and it's probably going to be sometime this year. And the story does tend to write itself when it takes off. There's all these green candles. The green candles attract new money chasing into it. Like, oh my gosh, I knew I should have bought crypto. Dang it. And then they throw money in, which creates bigger green candles, and then even more people FOMO in. And you get this crazy big blow off top. And looking forward to that. That same cycle I theorized would happen during the bear market of 2018 through 2020. I was thinking, you know what? We're going to have another blow off top. It'll be in 2021. And I bet everything on it. And it worked out really good. So this last bear market, I redeployed everything, redeployed all my capital, and I'm waiting for that big blow off top. And that's when it really hits a sell point. So, Joe Flamingo, first time I think I've seen you comment, says, I like Paul, even though he says Z instead of Z.
Yeah, I can't help that American is such a much cooler language than English. Well, I know it's English, but it's like, I can't say Z. I suppose I can say Z. I mean, JZ sounds wrong, doesn't it? It sounds really wrong. But yeah, JZ definitely sounds right. But yeah, we should adopt Z. I think that is one thing that we should adopt.
We discuss the most important things on this show.
Exactly.
All right. So like Hedera, like, do I like Hedera? Yes, I think it's got a lot more upside to go. It's one of those ISO coins that's, I think, going to be a really big deal. Now, interestingly enough, so many projects in the crypto space have focused on permissionless blockchains. Hedera is one of the few that's a permission blockchain, and specifically permission blockchains are going to be better for corporate usage. And Hedera has gone after this market. Now, one of my favorite projects in the whole crypto space is a competitor to Hedera, and Hedera has got a much bigger market cap, including the ISO standards, and has a massive head start. And it also has a massive market cap of 10 billion these days. So do I own Hedera? No. Do I think it's going to do well for a blue chip in the coming bull run? I think it will. From that standpoint, like for a blue chip, it's a buy for me, though I'm not buying it. And I have a massive load of a competitor to them. All right, let's take a look at our next one, which is XRP, which is one of the projects that Cardano and XRP are some of the projects that Solana people love to hate for whatever reason. It's kind of like, we're part of the Solana tribe. We can't love Cardano, and we must hate on Cardano, and we must hate on XRP. I like both Cardano and XRP a ton. Even more than I like Solana. So maybe I'm part of the Cardano XRP tribes.
Yeah, it sounds like it's become quite political from what you're saying.
Right, it's so tribal.
Yeah, but
I'm part of this tribe, and I can't like your tribe.
Yeah, that's you know, it's like with politics, really, isn't it? With politics, there's some things that the Democrats are going to say that you're going to agree with, and there's some things that the Republicans are going to say that you're going to agree with. You can never just be all on one side or all on another. But it's particularly dangerous to be like that in the markets, because you have to follow from a technical point of view. We're looking for strength, and it doesn't really matter what the names are. A lot of the time we're just looking at what the charts. Well, all the times what we're looking at is what the charts are saying, and the name is kind of secondary. But I mean, this is an example of that. The chart of Hedera and XRP are looking very similar. Somebody must already know what's going to be in this Bitcoin or this crypto reserve fund. So, wouldn't it be interesting if that's why this has been bought up so aggressively ahead of time? It's not like they decided yesterday. They would have decided this a long time ago. So again, that's information leaks, and that's why these things move in this way. But as far as where the chart is right now, we do have a very important support of this $1.93, and it almost looks like it's a tempting trigger point for a sell, but it's clearly above it. So as long as it's above $1.93, I think the squeeze is going to be to the upside. And if we take a step back as well, sometimes it's a good idea just to do this, just so you can look at the big picture. This whole area here is looking very bullish, because you've got rising lows into 1, 2, and this is the third peak. So if it can get through this high here at $3.80, for me, this is extremely bullish. It's like Bitcoin when it broke into its all-time high. First, as it broke out from $70,000, over the 69 level. And so this is what it reminds me of. So yeah, there may be a short-term setback if it can break this $1.90, because that was a very important support stroke resistance point. So, and these things can happen in the short term, but the long term, the upward pressure is very clear. So for me, it's a buy.
Yeah, XRP is an interesting one. I like XRP over a certain time horizon. Now, it's been hard for me to tell exactly how XRP would play out. I'm a big fan of XRP for the long term, because I do think that it becomes the financial rails of the new financial system. Especially Donald Trump made it more likely, but even if Kamala Harris had won, I think it still would have become those financial rails. And as such, it could be over $100, maybe even $1,000 in the coming 4 to 10 years. So if somebody was going to park some money in either Bitcoin or XRP, and they just had like a 10-year horizon, I like XRP better for that. Like if I were just going to park some money for 10 years, I would buy XRP. Now, am I buying it right now? Here's the challenge. Like my son came to me, and obviously kids never listen to you quite the same way. And he's my wife's son, technically. So his father has been telling him to buy XRP, actually when XRP was down here, which was good advice. And he came to me, he's like, should I buy XRP? And my answer was yes. Hell yes. And then he didn't. He got a girlfriend. They moved into an apartment together, and he spent all his money on his girlfriend in the apartment, which was terribly bad financial planning. Not only an apartment, but an expensive apartment. Youth is wasted on the young. So now it's here, and he's like, okay, I'm going to buy XRP. I'm like, here's the thing. And he's like, my dad says he's up 5x from what he bought at. And it's like, he is. So if you buy here and it goes up 5x from here, you're up 5x and your dad is up 25x. So it's like, you missed it on XRP. Like, is there still going to be good returns? Yes. If he were investing over a 10-year horizon, XRP, even at this price, is still a good buy. For this market, like what will XRP go to? I don't know. If it goes to $20 this cycle or $25, it did really well, which is 10x from here. So the people who bought under 50 cents will be up 50x, which is crazy good. on this, and I know a lot of my audience, we've had a lot of discussion on the ISO coins in our private Discord. By the way, if you're not there, you are missing out on a lot. Yes, there is a fee, and that is a gatekeeper, that it gatekeeps against those who aren't really serious about this. So to join the private Discord, you have to join the private Patreon, then follow the instructions to be able to connect up to the Rainmaker private Discord. And one of our community members is really, really knowledgeable on financial rails of the future system. He's been talking, and we've been talking about the ISO coins since the bear market. And anyway, so a lot of the my audience had XRP from 40 cents and 50 cents. Well, so is it going to have great returns from here? Not great returns. Like if it does 10x from here, it's incredible. And it did really well. That means everyone who bought it at 50 cents is up 50x, while somebody buying here is up 10x. So I told them that if I were in his shoes, I would just get a Coinbase account and I would buy Flow on it, which is related to digital collectibles. He doesn't have to try to figure out holding his own keys on a MetaMask or Trust Wallet, and he can just get a Coinbase account and buy it. And it's probably got a lot more upside potential than 10x. In fact, you probably do 40 or 50 or 100x from here. So XRP, is it a buy? Technically, yes. Over a 10-year horizon, it's definitely a buy. Am I buying it? I do love this project. I think this project's amazing. And what they're doing is going to change financial transactions across the world. For a long-term buy, this is one of the best long-term buys out there. I remember when it was trading at 40 cents and this girl asked me, she's like, I've held XRP for years now and I've got 10,000 into it. Should I sell it? And I was like, hell no. I said, do you need the money? And she's like, no. And I was like, can you just keep it to the side for 10 years? And she's like, yes. And I was like, keep it. Do not sell it till it's well over $100 or you're crazy. So anyway, she's a big fan of mine now. Let's move on to Chainlink.
Yeah, so Chainlink, from a big picture point of view, this is still looking interesting in terms of it being in a bull market. It has a similar kind of compression in this big, what we call triangular constriction, that it's playing out over a very long period of time. And markets like XRP have already had their really sharp move. This had a big sharp move, but it hasn't ejected itself from this triangular constriction, and hopefully that's on the horizon. But overall, the trend is up. It did break out at this point at $21. Ran into a lot of supply, as we've seen with lots of the other markets. So it's not that this had the problem on its own. It's part of the macro scene and part of the correction in altcoins, but its relative performance is very good. So I like the way it's actually sold off. Sorry, I just get that a bit straighter. I like the way it's sold off and it's come straight back up again. That's showing that there's good buying going on down at these levels. So although there may have been some capitulation, there are buyers stepping in and looking at the big picture. As I say, the pressure is still to the upside. So for me, it's a long-term buy. Whether it's going to consolidate here for a bit before the trend turns and it has another go at getting through this wood that it needs to chop, excuse me, the wood that it needs to chop that was created in this prior high is another matter. But as part of the bull market, I would be surprised if this isn't part of it or even leading it. So yeah, for me, it would be a buy. And I think only if it got below this $8 area, I know that's quite far away, would it indicate that there's some big problems. I mean, the first sign would be a break of this trend line that we could draw across here. You know, that would indicate some slowing of the overall trend, which wouldn't be fantastic, but we've seen it happen in some markets. But where I think it would be over potentially is if it, you know, gets below this 8 level, because that was such an amazing breakout point to the upside, and it was retested on the August 5th. I think that would have been when we got that spike sell-off, and that was a really important point in the markets for lots of reasons. So that should be the nadir, and we shouldn't really get below that.
Yeah, I like Chainlink, because oracles have become an integral part of crypto, especially decentralized finance. You have to have trusted places to get accurate pricing data because so much is based on that. And Chainlink has become one of the most trusted and most used oracles. Look at the kind of returns that it's had since it started being tracked here. So way back in 2017, it's had 10,615% return, which is 106x, which is crazy from way back then. And I think it has more upside to go, but it is solidly in the blue chip category. And where can it go from here? Maybe 10x. But if I were looking at blue chips that I wanted and I had hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars and I wanted to diversify across some lower risk projects, Chainlink would be in there. And I like it at this price. So it's pulled back from its highs and everyone was talking about it here. And that's when I get concerned. And it's stepped back like we often do, even in a bull run, where it's gone 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And so its price is on sale about 50% off from what it was at these highs. Funny enough, there's a huge line to buy it when it's up here, and then not very many buyers here because they're all freaked out. And this is an attractive place to buy it, a much more attractive place than where it was. So I think it's at a really good price. And I would just, even if I were worth billions of dollars, I still would just be holding this till the blow off top when everyone's saying, oh my gosh, Chainlink will never stop going up. And that would be my sell signal. Right now, I think it's a great time to buy for a blue chip. Let's take a look next at DEVVE, which is the enterprise blockchain compared to HBAR that I like. If you followed this channel for a while, I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yeah, so DEVVE is also a question that we've got that you've starred about what's the timeline for it to break into an all-time high or surpass its all-time high. I mean, nothing, again, I can say is guaranteed other than the fact that we should get some form of bull market. Well, that's not guaranteed either, that we will definitely get a bull market in altcoins, but there's a high probability that we will. And so this could well be part of it or should be part of it. Now, all we can say is that with something like this, which is such a new project, it's very difficult to make longer term predictions on something that doesn't have price history. So if something's been around for 2 months compared to 2 years, it's not as clearly it's not as established, and for that reason, it makes longer term forecasting very difficult. If the market's been around for 10 or 15 years, then you can make longer term forecasts because you've got more history. So part of also the uniqueness of certain crypto projects is there's a lot of selling that goes on early on in the projects and lockups and all that sort of stuff, together with the volatility that's involved. So, I have to put in those caveats because they can push the market around in a way that's very unpredictable from a technical point of view. They have to be very liquid in order for the balance of the crowd, to make it more predictable rather than a few individual people. But that said, I mean, this has performed quite well from a technical point of view. We had this bear market, and then there were signs that it was basing out around this 23 cents level, which is a very important nadir for it. If it gets obviously below that, then I think towels will be thrown in and that'll be the end of the project. But or could be potentially, I'm not saying it will be, but that would be where alarm bells would be going off. The breakout point came at 50 cents, and then we got this very aggressive move here. Now, after it hit this high, there was some really good news that came out, I seem to remember. And I was saying that, I was a little bit wary of the buy the rumor, sell the fact, and what it would do on that news. And it looks like it got sold off. So part of that move there was the anticipation. The breakout through $1 was very clear on a technical point of view, but it's now come below that and it's been chewing it on the way down, which means that there's obviously some buying going on again. But it's come back to its trend line. And this is the most important trend line, and it's respecting it at this point, but it's almost painted into a corner. So we've got this upward trend line here. It's hit a really good support. It's hit the 200-day moving average, which again is good support. The market has sold off and generally corrected. So it'd be a perfect place for it to have hit its low, and going sideways would just break this very aggressive downward trend. And then we can start looking at a move towards $1 and then talk about it breaking this resistance line as well. So I think there's a 60-40 probability that it's hit its low. And so more on the chance that it has hit its low than it hasn't. I need a bit more evidence before I can get excited. I do think that the long-term prospects are still good because of the way it traded from the way it based out and the way it's been trading technically. So I still think that's it's viable to have a longer term bullish view on it, but the caveats are still there. You know, it's a new project and these are highly volatile markets. So I want to see it back over this $1 level for lots of reasons. One, that was the prior breakout point. Two, this was where it consolidated, where I think we were saying it would go lower because that is a very clear bearish pattern that it triggered from. But I like the way that buyers have stepped in at this point. I'd like to see a bit more room between this 62 cents level and the current price. 77 cents percentage terms is pretty big, but in terms of the way the chart looks, it's not rebounded as enough to say that it's definitely over. Like this bearish move is definitely over. So I'd like to see it break this pattern of lower highs just to confirm that. But overall, I think again we're sort of reaching a very, or the end of a very bearish emotional point in the market that where things could just turn around quite quickly and move back up again. So this has as good a chance as any of joining that. Now, in terms of when it will break into an all-time high, there is going to be a lot of supply around here and a lot of supply around here that it now needs to get through. So I would say, and this is a very difficult thing to predict, that it would be, if it's going to happen, it will probably be more likely towards the middle of the year than it would be in the short term. But, you know, hopefully I'm wrong on that and it moves much quicker. But towards the end of the year, I think that's when the bull market will be running in earnest. So perhaps the third quarter would be a more safer bet if this is part of the, you know, the ones that are enjoying the bull market.
What's interesting is the way I think about crypto investing is that we're early stage business investors in the blockchain space. And sometimes there's projects that have a fundamental idea that could be really, really strong. And they have very, very low awareness. And if they're successful in growing to where there's high awareness, their price goes crazy. And a lot of the projects that made me so much money in the past were ones where I thought they had a fundamental idea that was so strong that I hoped that they would catch some major traction. And when they did, the gains were extraordinary. So some of the examples of that was Celsius. And I was following Celsius since it was like half a cent or 1 cent. Though I didn't buy it then because the only place you could buy it then was Uniswap. And I didn't really know how to use Uniswap back then. There was the early days of Uniswap. I did figure out one transaction on Uniswap. And Celsius went way up to 70 cents from there. Now, I did buy it when it went higher. No, it went to $7. I bought a bunch at 35 cents. And it went to $7 and made incredible money on Celsius and sold essentially near the top. There were other ones I bought that like nobody was talking about that I thought had fundamentally strong ideas. And one of those was Axie Infinity. And nobody was talking about Axie Infinity. And then later, everyone was talking about Axie Infinity. And the gains were tremendous. A few other projects like Gods Unchained, which really helped create Immutable X. Some incredible profits on that, and a few other ones. Well, And we even looked at Chainlink's chart, and Chainlink had made so much money in the early days of this idea of Oracle. If you were an investor there, you made incredible returns. Well, DEVVE #1 competes in the space of where HBAR is, but its market cap is so much lower. In fact, let's look here. Its market cap is at $70 million. And if you remember, I was shouting DEVVE from the rooftops when its price was way down here. And I said, it's way, way underpriced. It should do a lot better than this. And it went up to $1.70, and then it's bounced down here to 77 cents. And it's at an amazing buy price again. And I think this has an amazing future. Now, one of the things that drove this is anticipation of an announcement that still hasn't come out, that they are partnered with a tier 1 stock exchange for a new way of doing exchanges with the DEVVE exchange, that they have instant finality on their transactions, or T0, which will be the first exchange in the world to have T0 transaction times. And every exchange in the world has been trying to get there, and many are at T2 transaction finality times, and some are at T1 transaction finality times. And this is a really big deal, and it's because they could do this T0 transaction finality time that this major partner was interested in doing a deal with them. And they haven't announced whether that major partner, they just said it's one of the largest stock exchanges in the world, or stock. Yeah, so it could be like Robinhood, which is one of the largest players. It could be, I guess, NASDAQ or Dow Jones or something. But waiting for that official announcement. And that official announcement isn't here yet. So things have corrected, stepped back to what I consider an amazing price. And it's an incredible buy price for something that I think that the market cap can go amazingly higher. So we looked at Hedera's market cap, which is at like a $10 billion market cap. So that's like almost 150x from where DEVVE's market cap is now. And I think Hedera's goes a lot higher from here. So will DEVVE catch the major traction where everyone in the space is later aware of it? I strongly suspect so. And if it does, then its market cap will be in the billions, if not tens of billions. And that's why I'm a big fan. And so, like I said before, crypto often goes 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So this nice juicy price, it definitely gets a buy for me here. All right, let's take a look at, we got OMI and then a few suggestions to look at.
Yeah. Right. Sorry, I was just getting the other ones ready. So OMI, where's it gone? There we are. So OMI, again, it's making overtures to a breakout point. Oh, actually, we put this level in here, and I said if it can get through it, that would be an indication of what was potentially an inverse head and shoulders or some form of base. I don't know whether that was a real move or what, whether it's just price action being put in wrong in the system. It has done this in the past. You see, each market has its own signature, and you get to know whether something's real or not. But there is plenty of this spiky price action all along the chart, and ordinarily that would mean something if it hadn't done it before. So the more often the market does something, the less significant it is. So the fact that it did that and then came straight off meant that this wasn't a proper breakout. So it's still sitting within the lows or the prior lows of the chart. So there's not enough evidence to suggest that that it's ready for a turn from a technical point of view. What one can say is, though, that from early February to where we are now, it is holding in these lows, which is something. It's not brilliant, but it's something. It's better than it breaking lows, and this is how bases are formed anyway. It's just a little too close to the all-time lows for comfort. I'd rather it was trading above that, consolidating but trading a bit higher, to indicate that it wants to turn around. But there are some signs that there are potentially some buys going in that have pushed it up, even though they haven't stuck yet. But for me, it's still got to be a wait, because there just isn't enough evidence for me to jump in at this point. And yeah, and I guess with everything else selling off, it's showing a bit of saturation, that it's not going into new lows, because you expect a really negative environment to have pushed it into new lows. So the fact that it's resisting that again is another positive. But things are very balanced here at the moment, and I'm sure we're going to look at it again. So we should see the signs of when it's starting to turn around properly, but it's just not quite yet.
Yeah. Not surprising. Paul and I have different strategies that we use for when we buy, and I really like where OMI's price is. Now, Paul trades off of price action, and he looks for more of a confirmed breakout, and there is definitely no confirmation of a breakout here. So let's look at OMI's chart here and see it is right near these bear market lows that it hit back in November 2024, and it's right near that. Oh, such an amazing juicy price in my opinion. Now, OMI is a token associated with DEVVE, and DEVVE has licensed digital collectibles from Disney, from Marvel, from DC, from a lot of major brands, and they're 3D augmented reality 3D collectibles that I think are amazing. And I like to buy low while sentiment is extremely, extremely low. And I'm buying based on my assessment of what is the real underlying value of the project behind it. And so when I'm buying based on that research, and then I hold till everybody's talking about it, and then I sell. So it's at an absolutely incredible price. And I would love to buy more. Now, I have hundreds of millions of OMI and looking to buy more. What I'm hoping is that some of the other narratives that I'm invested in run a lot before the digital collectibles narrative runs, so that I can get a lot more of this token. I think it's criminally underpriced. And at this price, it's an amazing deal. And I would love it if it just stayed at this price for like 4 or 5 months while some other things in the market went crazy. But at this price, it's definitely a buy. I wish my dollar cost average was anywhere near this price. It is higher. I did load up a bunch more, I think, at the 3.3 level. So it's even cheaper than that. And I bought like 35 million more at the 3.3 level. So an incredible price. It's not a bad thing when I buy at a level and then it goes cheaper. The questions I asked, like one of my viewers wrote me and he said, Rain, gosh, I'm just so concerned about OMI's price. It seems like it's done nothing but go down, and I'm concerned. And, you know, he said, I know you can't tell me what to do, but what are you thinking about this? And I said, look, I asked myself 2 questions. Number one, is the underlying project likely to survive? Even like looking at it with fresh eyes, is it likely to survive until the coming bull market? And my assessment on that is hell yes. So they are likely to survive until the coming bull market. Secondly is then if that's the case and the price is way down, it's not sell time. The only question I ask myself is, can I buy more at this current price if the price keeps going down? And so the price is really attractive to me. And if it got even cheaper, that would be even better. I don't think it'll get cheaper between this, but maybe it'll surprise me. And if it does, it's not a bad thing, especially if some of my other ones would take off more. I would diversify more into this one. This is one of my favorite ones for long-term gains. Digital collectibles, I think, is an amazing narrative. For those of you who haven't checked out my course, it's called Top 2 Projects That Are like Massively Undervalued. You'll see it down in the description. You might want to check out that course. Those projects are still massively undervalued, and I'll show how back in 2020 I made a similar bet, and it went about 150x from there. And I didn't even play it very smart because I was new, and that course specifically covers 2 similar projects to that I think are criminally underpriced as well right now. All right, let's take a look. That's on our suggested ones. Let's look at some of the ones You already answered this question. What's Paul's timeline or outlook on DEVVE reaching surpassing its all-time high? And it's like not enough price history to really look at. Now, he's right. There's not much price history on DEVVE. One of the things I do like about it is the project is not new. They've been working on it for about 8 or 9 years. And I was talking to Tom Anderson like a week ago. And I said, how does it feel that probably this year, everyone's going to be talking about your project and they'll be like, oh my gosh, it's an overnight success. And yet, you know that this success is 9 years in the making. And he was laughing about that. And it's true. MVE asked if we can take a look at Bumper.
Yeah. So Bumper, again, this is one that we've got this 2.5 cents level. For me, that indicates the base is complete. And it's been, if you look at the way the lines are being drawn here, the highs are still getting lower. And we had this big spike here, which was a bit of a warning flag. Then it hit a low, had a rally that hit this resistance. But since then, these puncture points have all been to the downside. We're waiting for this trend line to break to indicate that at least there is some strength returning. So we've had this sharp sell-off and a fairly decent rebound, but it hasn't recovered the full extent of that first sell-off. So am I getting an up-to-date chart here? Yeah, I am. Sorry, just checking that is up to date. So again, for me, it's a wait. It needs to do more before I can say that it's formed a base of some kind, and it's, I guess, for me, time to buy. At the minimum, it would be a breaking of this trend line. Spikes in a normal market are a sign that the trend is reversing. So you get a very sharp move and then a recovery. But because this has, again, done this a few times and there hasn't been a recovery, goes back to what I was saying before. The more times the market does something, the less significant it becomes. We're looking for outliers that indicate that all the selling pressure has happened and now it's turned around. And we've seen that in some of the other markets, but we haven't necessarily seen it here. So I hope that this is the low, but I can't trade on hope. I need more concrete evidence. So for me, it's still a wait.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in just a minute. I was sharing the questions that I ask when I'm looking at whether something's going to, like when price is down, and Bumper's price is down actually at some of the lowest levels it's been this whole bear market. So first is the company likely to survive until the bull market? And geez, there was a big scare, I don't know, like a month ago that like, oh my gosh, they might be going out of business because, you know, somebody showed a screenshot of them dissolving one of the companies. And it was associated with some of the people involved with Bumper and like freaked out. And I guess the next day got an update from the team that's like, oh, that was a disregarded entity in a country that we're not even using. So, okay, that kind of thing would be concerning. And they had a good explanation for that. So is Bumper likely to survive until the coming bull run? I sure hope so. I feel like OMI has really, really high potential for that. Now, Bumper, when I talked to them, must have been 10 months ago or something, they said they had 2 years runway. And as long as that's still the case, that they have 14 months runway, then they should have plenty of time to survive until the bull market, which would be a good sign. But notice I said the word if they have plenty of runway, or if the market does good enough that they could just borrow additional capital, because when the market's way down like this, it's hard for crypto companies to even be able to borrow additional capital to extend their runway. So is it a risky point? Now, some of my biggest scanners hit some risky points like Axie Infinity that I didn't know if they were to survive, and they did end up surviving, and they ended up having massive growth. So Bumper is risky from here. So my question number one is it going to survive until the coming bull market? Maybe is my answer. I sure hope so. I own a lot of Bumper, and I'd love to see them survive, but I do factor that in. Now, if they survive, they can do extremely well. So there is massive potential reward with higher risk. So Bumper isn't something that I deploy huge amounts of capital into. Now, I put 50,000 additional into it a couple months back, and that position is way down. It is something that as I free up capital, I want to buy more, especially at these prices. And so I'm just waiting, hoping some other narratives run to free up some capital and deploy. And we're going to deploy hundreds of thousands into this. Well, look at the market cap. I don't need to deploy hundreds of thousands into this in order to have high potential returns because the market cap is so low, 687 at this price. I could buy all the tokens out there if it were all at this price without pumping the market on myself for $687,000. So extremely cheap price, an attractive price. I would give it a buy, but it's a risky buy. This isn't something I would throw $50,000 into. 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 1,000, yes, and then maybe 5,000 again later, but not like 100,000 or 50,000. But it still gets a buy from me because that price is so low that the upside potential is incredible. If it goes to $1 billion market cap from here, that is over 1,000x. And I really like the use case. I hope they survive because I think the use case is amazing. This is one of the crypto projects I most want to see survive, not just for potential gains, but for the use case to be deployed. And I've talked about the use case on it a ton of time. I won't go into it this time. Let's get back to MVE asks, can we check out the KASPA chart? Fundamentals are good, but it looks like it's going on an early bear market. Do they have already performed a lot? 2022, 23, 24. All right, let's see what we got.
It is correcting, but it's also correcting as part of what has been a really good upward trend. So, at some point, I would say market's going to dig in and it will find its support. Now, it might not have done it, or this may be the low. The sentiment is conducive to this being close to a low. Massive support comes in at 5 cents. So I think that would be a really good level if it can get down there. For me, that would be a buy point with a stop below. Good risk reward on that trade. So yeah, it could go a bit lower from here still. But I do like the longer term prospects because it is in an upward trend. And at some point with everything else, it should turn around. So short term lower, perhaps, and then longer term, I think it will go up.
Yeah, KASPA has performed really, really well. And when I get something that's run like this, I like to take profits out of it and diversify them to other things. So KASPA, I mean, one of the best performers actually this whole bear market is KASPA. Now, when I have something that's outperformed everything else like this, I take profits on that and I roll that into other things. For example, one of the projects I talked about during the bear market was AOS, and AOS performed during the bear market from its lows of 3 cents, 1 cent, 1.5 cents, all the way down to 1 cent. It went 100x all the way to $1.20. Now, as it was making this climb, I sold off half because it was way ahead, way ahead, and everything else was down. Then when it made this second climb, I sold the rest of it. Now, I still believe in AOS, but this is one of the reasons I like diversification, because say my average ROI on this was up 35x because I didn't get it all at the bottom. Rolling that into other things, that then if they could do a 50x from there, that's a 1500x overall. So when I get way ahead on my positions, I take profits and roll them into other things. And KASPA is a perfect one, or was a perfect one for that type of thing. Now it's retraced 2/3 of its value. Is it worth holding on here? You have to evaluate that for yourself. It's at a $2 billion market cap. When it was up here, we had some internal chats about it in our private community about KASPA. And my thought was, if I was holding it, I would be rolling that into other things. It has since retraced tremendously. And this just goes to show that what runs doesn't run for forever. And so it was running contrary to everything else. In my opinion, was a good time to diversify out. What to think about it now? I think in a greater bull run, it recovers and it goes even higher than it was before. But I can't tell you in the short term. I don't know if it continues correcting downwards in the short term or what it does. I think the medium term for KASPA is fine. So it definitely is not a buy for me at this price. It would be more like a wait or even possibly a sell, depending on what I have that I could roll it into. All right, let's take a look at other things. Thanks for another stream, Rain and Paul. President Trump will host the first White House crypto summit tomorrow. Do you think it will move Bitcoin higher? Or will it be buy the news, sell the fact event? Great question, Roman. What do you think, Paul?
Do you want to give your view on it? Because that's more of a fundamental question. I've just popped this up because of the tariffs. You know, it's literally a breaking story that Donald Trump has agreed further tariff concessions. So it's almost like he's kind of reining back already on what he said. So it just kind of fit in with what we were talking about before.
It's almost like he's using it as a strategic negotiation tool.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and that's how the market's taking it. It's like it will kind of fade off into the distance, and we'll just concentrate on other things. Yeah, I mean, it from a fundamental point of view, I would be asking someone like you and Manu what you think the reserve will be, but I don't think it's going to change the long-term outlook really. From a technical point of view and a macro point of view, it's amazing how the markets kind of end up fitting to what the fundamentals should be doing. Where we are right now, the market is in a really negative position. They're in a bearish, they've got their bearish hat on. And so I think it would probably be far more bullish than they'd expect. So this might be a surprise the other way, where he's going to do things that we're not expecting. But actually outside of that, I think the more important thing is that we've got non-farms tomorrow on the same day, and we got Fed Chairman Jerome Powell speaking as well. So you've got three things on a day that could really shift the markets a lot. So it might be that maybe not much on the Bitcoin reserve, but then we've got Fed Powell saying he can see a slowdown, so rates are going to go down and the market just explodes. Or Fed Powell doesn't say very much, but the Bitcoin reserve makes everything go up, or non-farms are weak, and that makes the market think that rates are going to be cut. It could be any of those three things. I think short term, also the market can knee jerk, but what we want to look for is what happens after the market knee jerks. So if they think this is bearish news and it goes down, usually the market then recovers very quickly. So I think either way, I sense that it's more a buying opportunity than a selling opportunity.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens related to that. Some of that anticipation is priced in, but like Paul said, there's other big things going on for that day that could create a big swing. I don't think a lot is going to be decided that day. It's a summit, means a lot of talks, probably not ready for decisions. It's just getting a bunch of opinions from some of the top people. So probably no new decisions that day. It's just taking information. And one of the things that I think is keeping crypto on the sidelines for now is that the US isn't making policy related to crypto yet. They're still in the discussion phase of putting together thoughtful crypto regulatory ideas. And so you are seeing some policy decisions, some reversals out of the SEC ending their, in my opinion, crazy lawsuits that they were doing to attack the crypto space. And those are ending. But as far as what the specific regulation looks like, is still just in the discussion phase. And so markets like certainty, and there isn't a lot of certainty as to what the regulations will be. And I don't think Friday brings about certainty either, just further discussion. So I don't think much happens related to the crypto summit. There's other big things that happen that day that could mean bigger swings in where people are putting their money, which could lead to the crypto market pumping or dumping, like Paul said. So great question. Let's take a look at VV Wheels wants us to look at meme coin.
Okay.
VV Wheels. Meme coins are not something I love because it's like when I go to the casino, I also don't gamble. I do appreciate their discounted hotel rooms for how nice they are. But as far as gambling, I like to take when odds are better for me. But because we have Paul here, who specifically looks at price action, we will take a look at that. Otherwise, I would not. So you're asking on the right day, that's for sure. So let's take a look and see what we got.
Right. So here we are. Yeah. Toshi. Well, sorry, which one was it? Toshi. Sorry,
TOSHI, yeah.
Yeah. So the previous chart I had wasn't completely up to date. I mean, look, the trend is still down, unfortunately. So from a technical point of view, it looks like it will probably go lower. So it's not one that I would buy, or it's not even a question of whether I would buy it. So when you have a discipline, you're looking for something to tell you that a market is a buy, and I can't justify that with this chart. Now, it's important to note that that doesn't mean it can't go up, because of course it can. It just looks like the probabilities are pointing more to the downside. And the logic from a technical point of view is that all the highs and lows over the course of this chart have been fairly consistently lower. And therefore, it is tempting to, because it looks inverted commas cheap, but the direction of travel is down. So I have to respect that until I see something that's changed the dynamics of the market, i.e., it goes sideways for a bit, and then starts to rise. That's the first sign that things are changing direction. In the same way that the first sign that the market changed direction from upwards to downwards is you get increased volatility, and then a lot of bullish sentiment when the market tends to go sideways to down. So you see exactly the same thing. So maybe when everybody turns really, really bearish and this stops going down, that might be the first indication that the trend has changed. But from a justifying it technically, I can't. So the very best I'd say it's definitely a wait, and possibly a sell, unfortunately. But there is this kind of issue in the background that there is still a bull market to come, and therefore this may rise with it. I mean, I can't say whether it will or not. It's just that I think most things will go up, and it may be that this will go up when it shouldn't, and that could give you an out. But for me, I'm not jumping into something like this. So for me, it's definitely a wait.
So it doesn't have a lot of price action on this chart because it's charted on Coinbase. If we look at CoinMarketCap, we do get a better history. So you can see some previous support and resistance, and you can get a better idea of what's happening. It looks like right around here was listed on Coinbase, and that's part of what increased its pump, or because it was pumping so much, Coinbase listed it, is probably what happened, which pumped it further, giving it greater accessibility. And then it's correcting downwards. Is it too early to buy this? Well, I don't ever buy meme coins, even when I have insider knowledge that one is going to pump tremendously, because it's just not my play. Just like gambling. Now, if I were at the craps table, or I was at the roulette table, and I knew something had really, really good odds, I would play that. But like meme coins, I just don't recommend in the crypto space them, because the opportunity cost of meme coins is so high, meaning you could pull it into something that just has greater potential, greater possibilities. And so you're foregoing that to be on something that doesn't have substantive long-term value, in my opinion. Now, some people are saying meme coins are culture and they'll be around with us forever, which is great, but which meme coins are going to be around with us for forever? Now, probably Doge, probably a few, maybe Shiba Inu, probably like a couple that have made it high enough trajectory. Pepe, maybe. And so the gamble is TOSHI, has it made enough that it's going to stay around with us long term? I've seen so many meme coins just fade into oblivion over time. So I just don't play that. It's kind of like a game that over time doesn't really go up in general. So I tend to invest in companies where their trajectory is that they're growing, and I'm betting on a company. And in a meme coin, I'm just betting on hype is all. And there's no underlying company. There's not a team that's building some kind of product or service that makes the world a better place. So it's just not my play. So for me, it would be sell, and I would roll it into OMI. That's what I would do.
Thanks for pointing out the long-term chart. I did actually just think it was very new, and having a look at the long-term chart, if I could just get my chart back up, from CoinMarketCap. I mean, where it is right now is actually a really interesting support point. So I would say it's fairly make or break where it is here, because look, it goes right the way across. Look at that high there, and that high there. That's 3 really important support points. So if it's going to bounce, it's going to do it now. That doesn't mean I'm going to buy it, but I'm just saying that this is a very interesting level. It's also the top closing of this bar and the opening of this one. So very important level. So maybe we should have a look at it again in a couple of weeks and see if it's respected this point. Because it just, as I say, it happens to be a very big one. But for that doesn't change my outlook. You know, it's still, the trend is still negative. It's got to be confirmed here. But that's also why it's important to look at a long-term chart, because you then find these levels that the market can respect. So let's see in a couple of weeks' time, or maybe a month or so, and see if it's held on to it.
Fair enough. Roman Z asked if we can take a look at XCN, which is Onyx coin.
Yeah. XCN.
Yeah.
So I seem to remember us talking about this fairly recently, and it was just corrective, wasn't it? I think we said it needed to get into the middle of this. This is a pennant formation, which is a very bullish pattern, this area here. And sometimes when the market corrects, it goes into the middle of that and then goes back up. So it's still in a correction, and that might last a few more weeks, maybe a month or so. But I'd love the power of this breakout. And you know, given that the big macro scene is bullish, there should be a buy point coming in. So longer term, I think it's a buy. Short term, I think it might go a bit lower. The real breakout point was here at 0.004. So until it gets back below there, I think it's going to be a long-term buy. It just got overdone, didn't it? I mean, that was a straight line move, and it's just not sustainable. So all of this is actually healthy for the longer term. We just need it to dig its heels in somewhere and find its buy point. But I think it will do that. So, you know, we could be close. So longer term, as I say, it's a buy for me. But short term, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it went a little bit lower.
Yeah, Onyx. I'm trying to figure out what I think about this one. So definitely had a big breakout here, which is nice. If we put it on a logarithmic scale, you can see this is where it was at its lows in October 2023. It since has corrected up quite a bit. It was really, really, really cheap. Fraction of a penny here. So it's had some big gains. $500 million market cap. Is it going to survive? Well, I was looking into what is Onyx coin? Onyx is a Web3 blockchain infrastructure that enables organizations to build better financial services from the ground up. So this is a company that's building something that has a chance to end up improving business and other things, as businesses will be looking for building their financial services on blockchains. Is Onyx going to be something that they build on? I haven't done enough research to know what is their strategic point. So if I were researching Onyx, I'd be looking for interviews with the team. I want to hear from the team what the team says about it. Sometimes you get very general things when you're reading with the write-ups, and I want to know specifically who's behind it and what is their vision. So without deeper fundamental knowledge, I can just look at their price charts and say, well, what do I think about this? Looks like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and maybe has some more correcting to go before going bigger. So if I had taken some long-term positions on this, I'd probably just still be holding. Is it a buy point for me? Not good enough for a buy point. So it would be a wait on Onyx. Would be my feeling on it. The market cap, 500 million. Where could something like this go? 5 billion, 50 billion. If it's incredible, I don't know if it's incredible, but it's already realized. So 10x gains from even this point. And so if there's another 10x gains from here, that's 100x from this point, which is some great returns for those who were early. It's late to be buying in on this, though, unless it gets a lot cheaper, in my opinion. All right. So it's definitely not a buy. Let's take a look at HASHAI. Rivian wants us to look at HASHAI.
HASHAI, right. Okay. Again, what's the history? Let's see how much history we can get. So what's going on here? Why is this is a weird chart, isn't it? Look, Jan 25, Jan 24. What's going on there? Does something happen or change with the coin? Maybe that's really odd. Not sure what's quite happening there. I think there may be a problem with the data, but overall the trend is still down. So if this is a correct and up to date price, not I can't justify buying it for me here. It is approaching an important low. The all-time low on the chart is not far away. Over the past few weeks, it has consolidated, but the highs are getting lower. It's more consistent with the downward trend. So I need to see more evidence that this is based before I could justify a technical buy. So at this stage, I think it's one that we'd have to come back to and just say, for the moment here, it's a wait. It's definitely a wait for me. So when this happens, I'd be, put it on a watch list if there was nothing else to look at that was looking interesting. Just see if it can form more of a base here. Usually the start of a breakout is it takes something like this level here out. Two peaks have come in around 3.05175, and it goes through it in a really aggressive and fast way. Now, I don't mind waiting for that because it would also break this downward trend as well. And that pattern is quite important because that's been fairly consistent for some time. The high started at December 24, but this high from Jan 25 as well is kind of a smoother rate of downward trend. So I'd say it definitely needs to do that for a big picture reversal, but we're just not there yet. I mean, that doesn't mean again that it can't go up, because it's clearly possible. It could be digging its heels in right now, and this may be the low, but it's just not one that I can justify. I'll always miss the absolute low in a chart for the safety of trying to jump in as it's turning, and that's just part of technical analysis.
Yeah, so I was just digging a bit deeper on this to see what I think about HASHAI. And what is HASHAI? Price action looks like attractive, so I was looking at fundamentals, and I'll share some insights that just come through experience. So about HASHAI, where artificial intelligence meets mining excellence with vast crypto and Web3 experience, the HASHAI team has established the infrastructure, partnerships, and distribution network for a successful crypto mining company. This involves mining rigs, supplies, rig hosting, and GPU sales in a mining facility with over 500 top GPUs. Harnessing the power of AI, we've developed an intelligent mining algorithm that maximizes hash power by selecting and mining the most efficient coins across L1 blockchains in real time. What I've seen from mining coins related to mining operations is that over time, every single one of them has failed. So I know because I tried 3 or so projects over the years, mostly in my earlier days. And they survived for a while and they just didn't make it. Now, this is a little bit different in that they're using AI to choose the most profitable coins to mine over time. And so reselecting it, but I really don't think mining makes near as much sense as just owning the assets. So I've tried that route and I just find it's not as profitable. And then adding further risk on it is buying tokens for somebody that's doing that. It just hasn't worked out historically. Now, that doesn't mean this can't be one that does, but I've invested in like 3 and I lost my money on all 3 of those. Like all the money was lost except for a little bit of early profits that I took. I watched like 10 or 15 and none of them have survived beyond like 4 years. And so HASHAI, will they survive long term? I don't know. This is not a kind of bet I take. For me, it would just, even at these disastrously low prices, and this is not normally a sell point, but it's just not the things that I buy. I roll into other things that I like. And so it was much, much, much higher from here. In fact, it was like 7x higher from where it is now. I doesn't mean in this bull run it can't do tremendously well. You'll have a lot of new people coming in. They'll be like, yeah, I can buy this token that's associated with mining, and I don't even have to manage the mining. It has AI in the name, and they're using artificial intelligence to decide which ones to mine. And all that means is they're using some programming code that tells them which one is going to be more profitable to mine. Like, is it true AI? Not really. It's just programming code that says, you know what, if we mine ETH today, it's going to pay better than if we mine Bitcoin or whatever other token, right? So it's not even true AI, in my opinion. But whatever, it's a big buzzword right now, AI. And, when we're in a bull market, like you'll probably see this pump too. It's just not my type of bet. And hopefully I'm wrong on this. It does incredibly well. That's just my historical perspective based on painful experience. All right. Jimbo asked if we take a look at SUI, and then we only have time for one more. We'll take a look at Senate after that because I think Senate is so cheap. It baited me into talking about it because I do like talking about what is massively cheap that I believe in.
Yeah. So SUI, interestingly, is now, it's been corrective. I know I was quite excited about this because when it was breaking out and in this upward trend, it looked really interesting. Probably squeezed to levels where I thought it would go higher at this point just because that was part of the trend, but it corrected off with everything else, and that's just part and parcel of markets that get overbought and have good long-term prospects. It's good that you have these pullbacks, but the percentage moves are just brutal, aren't they? I mean, it's just crazy, really. But where it stopped again is a really interesting technical point. This was a key breakout point. We've also got this high here. So you've got 2 levels of support where it should hold in. So I'd expect it to be near a low and getting ready to break higher. So as part of that, even just going sideways like this would be good. Volume has dropped off. You see it's gone down as the market's gone down, which is a good sign. Volume was going up, it'd mean that there's increased selling, which is not a good sign. So it's a very, as I say, very interesting technical point in a buy zone. So short term, I would be, for me, stepping in with, and remember, I always have a parachute level. So I'd be looking at where I would bail out from a buy point. So I'm not going to hold it as it goes all the way down. It would just be step in. If it holds the level and starts to go up, then just trying to stay with the position. But if it gets cheaper, then I exit and try it again at a different level. So for me, around this $2.19 area, if it gets back to it again, some very good support there. Now, as far as resistance goes, or if it doesn't come back, what does one do? This is why we put in these trend lines. If it breaks this downward trend line, and it could quite easily do that because it's quite an aggressive downward trend line, that is a kind of fail safe to get into the market to show that it's wanting to reverse its trend. So as I mentioned before, we're looking for a change of dynamics. The dynamics is corrective with pockets of buying, but if it starts to form higher lows off this, it has to break this downward trend. Well, it doesn't have to, but it will most likely break this downward trend line in order to do that. So that would be the fail safe. If it's trading back up again at $3.50, I would be very interested in it, especially if it can close over that, because we'll start attacking those highs, especially if the broader macro picture is falling into place and everything else is moving up with it. So very good support areas ahead if it should go any lower. Broadly speaking, it's been a great bullish trend anyway. And with the macro scene, it should benefit from the longer term outlook. So it's a buy from me.
Yeah, I do like SUI. I do think it's one of the newer layer one blockchains that's going to do well. And by newer, like they've been in development for a long time. SUI leveraged all of Facebook's hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars of research into launching a blockchain. And it seems to be operating quite well. So I think SUI has a chance to be around with us for a long time. So looking at the price structure, its lows from the bear market were here at 50 cents. And then it came back down here to 60 cents. And then it started its run up to like $5. This was not an interesting point to buy. And in general, like blue chips aren't interesting to me. I want things that can do 40, 50, 100x. And I think there's plenty of those. And I diversify across multiple ones in case maybe 10% of them fail or 20% of them fail. I still make really, really good returns over being in blue chips at this point. But if I had billions of dollars and was looking to take more stable positions, I'd be buying more blue chips with just the offshoots of taking some riskier plays at the low market cap ones. So for a blue chip play, I like SUI a lot. I spoke with somebody associated with the SUI team and asked if I want to do an OTC deal for SUI at really cheap. And I was like, look, I would love to do it. But I'm not doing blue chips, and it was at a good price. And I said I and my audience wouldn't have access to that deal. Like SUI, I appreciate you reaching out to me. I'll talk about SUI for free because like I think SUI is a good blue chip. It's one of my favorite blue chips. It got pretty steep pretty fast here, and it was not a buy for me there. It's coming back into cheaper territory, starting to get attractive again here. Hopefully it corrects more and can get more attractive, but it's been a very severe pullback. We'll see. Maybe it started to get talked about a whole lot in here. I'd like to see it pull back some more before it's like an amazing blue chip buy. Right now, it's just a pretty good blue chip buy. So for me, it's just a wait. It's close to a buy, but it's just like, I think it might get juicier from here. And that's only if I were buying blue chips, which I'm not. But I do try to analyze it to what I would do if I were buying blue chips, because some of you out there may be. And so if I were buying blue chips, what would I think about it? All right. The last one is Senate token. Then we just need to wrap up. It's been almost 2 hours.
Yeah. So Senate is, again, I think we talked about it earlier or a few weeks back, and it was in this downward trend. It's not done anything that would allow me to buy it from a technical point of view in that space of time. And it crossed through its all-time low on the chart as well. I mean, there is some evidence of some buying coming in here. Highly speculative coffee money. I might stick some in it with a very tight stop, only because it's made this little spike and it seems to be wanting to turn around here. I mean, that's very rare that I would do that. And I'm not saying it's a big buy because of it. It's just like occasionally, even though I'm breaking rules, it just gets tempting to do that. But there is really no justification from a technical point of view, to be honest, to be buying it at this point. I would have to wait probably as far as it getting over 2 cents, 2.7 cents before I could really justify it. Although this 2.2 cents level is interesting because you got a peak here and a peak that comes across. So if it's forming some form of base, that could be a good trigger line. But where it is now, it would be highly speculative to be stepping in, and I wouldn't do it without either a very small position, well, a very small position with a very tight stop. Those would be the two parameters, and it would just be one of those. It's like putting money on a horse with very high odds on a race. It may come in and you get a bigger payout, but also the probabilities are also against you at that point. And there are going to be other times when it's going to look a lot clearer. But that's the thing about the markets. When you look at them a lot, they do tempt you into doing things that perhaps you shouldn't do. So, yeah, that's why we try and stick with the discipline. But so, yes, small position could be justified, but talking from a technical point of view, it's really a wait.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. So I had a chance to meet the CEO of SIDUS, because this is the secondary token associated with SIDUS NFT Heroes. And so they have the SIDUS token, they have the Senate token, and each has a little bit different purpose. This whole dual token gaming coin idea is interesting. I think games can get away with it. I can't say I prefer the dual token idea, but it is what it is. And of the two tokens, I like the Senate one better, especially because I think it's more underpriced. So I did tell my private audience here that I thought Senate was massively undervalued. And then all of a sudden we had this crazy gaming run sparked off by a major YouTube channel saying that blockchain gaming was like such a huge thing and it was massively undervalued, and he just went huge in it. And then it just totally pumped out of nowhere, and has since been out of the spotlight since then. And so this is what happens when the narrative is out of the spotlight, when you're still not in the blow off top of the bull run. And so it's corrected down to too cheap again. This is an incredible price again, and I like it. And yeah, so as long as they survive into the coming bull market, and I think they will, yeah, it's going to have potential massive upside. It was 35 cents. So it was 20x higher than where it is now. And that wasn't even the blow off top of the bull market. So you see how coins like this can do 100x, maybe even more in a full blow off top when massive new money is coming into the space and the narrative of blockchain gaming hits. So good suggestion. Definitely a buy for me. All right, let's see. Don't have time for Medicaid. Thank you for the suggestion. I did really enjoy the discussion with Medicaid, and I understand what their value proposition is. So if you bring that up next time, we can talk about it. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Paul, thank you for your time today. I know the private audience was really excited to hear from you, and bummed that we couldn't do it yesterday, but excited that you could join us today. So
yeah, thanks for the comments. Thanks for everything. And yeah, look forward to next week. See you next week.
All right, we'll see you then. There's a lot of FUD in the market, and this is so normal. Like, it is really hard to tell within the greater 4-year period exactly when things are going to run. Some of that is just guesses, and it's really hard to be off on like specific guesses for the short term. But it's not too hard to be off on for the medium or longer term, because every 4 years since 2013, the crypto market has gone absolutely bananas. So 2013, 2017, 2021, and here we are in 2025. And maybe we're wrong. Maybe it doesn't go crazy till 2026. I still think it's going to be this year, but if not, next year should be it. We're seeing the right fundamental things set up for a massive run ahead of us. It's just hard to tell exactly when that run may be. And it may just be 6 weeks from now. It may not be for 6 months from now. I can't tell, which is why I actually buy using money that I can afford to lose. Not that I want to lose it. Not that it wouldn't be painful if I lose it, but that I can afford to lose. And that's why I make the same suggestion to everyone else, because it allows you to be patient. When you borrow money to buy crypto, you then have a shortened timeline, and it makes you react more emotional because you can't simply sit back and be patient. If you're looking to do better than average, and average in the crypto space, unfortunately, isn't very good. Now, average from here until the bull run is going to be pretty good, but a lot of average new people are not going to take profits during the bull run. They're going to miss it out. They're going to miss out on those gains because they won't have harvested them. So you're here at the right channel. Subscribe to the channel because we talk about things. Even though YouTube does not incentivize me to talk about crypto this way, I do this because I'm an investor myself, and this is how I do things. And it's so far been extremely successful for me. This is also what I've observed works across the broader crypto market, a strategy that almost everyone can do. And I say almost everyone because if you don't have any patience at all, this won't work out for you. You just can't do investing in general because money does transfer over time from the impatient to the patient. So if you have zero patience, like not only is crypto not right for you, probably nothing is. And that's okay. I mean, what else are you going to do? So you do have to be patient to be in this space. And if you are patient, you can make amazing gains if you're then making good discussions. I have a few courses. There's some discounts below if you're interested in them. One is our Zero to Crypto Hero course, which is designed to take those that have a high value on their time and catch you up to speed in a very short amount of time compared to you can just go back and watch the last, I would specifically suggest last 2.5 to 3 years of videos. Even though I've got videos going back 4 years, I was still learning some things, and it was my first bull market and back in 2021 that I was prepared for. And so I was still learning some lessons, and a lot of where I'm at today solidified after being in the crypto space for about 5 years, which is really, that was 3 years ago that I'd been in the space 5 years. So that's why I'd suggest videos 3 years ago and on, because there were some other lessons that I learned since then. Or take the Zero to Crypto Hero course. If you're looking for one specific project that is massively undervalued now, there's actually 2 in that course. You'll see that below. For the rest of you, this wrap, enjoy it. You know what this is all about. We'll see you soon.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always made the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dumped it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.